Friends, welcome everyone. This is your Gnostic Institute of Esoteric Magic. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We enter today the influence of the constellation of Leo, and thus that's going to be our topic. As part of our series in Hermetic Astrology, we will go today into this topic of the constellation of Leo. And we would like to start by sharing what are these attributes of the people of Leo. This is very useful if you are a Leo. There is a native of Leo that is very close to you, an integral part of your life. Natives of Leo. Samael Aun Weor says they are like lions. They are brave, they are furious, noble, worthy. They're constant, they're consistent. That is phenomenal. These natives of Leo, very energetic people who are very kind, and they are, Samael says, magnanimous. They are mystical. They are also authoritarian. And he says, they only want to be in charge. They only want to command. But there are other attributes that are interesting about these natives of Leo as well. They have very good organizational abilities. They can develop the sentiment of bravery, just like the lion is that courageous. And as part of this internal force that drives them, the masters say that they can become great paladins. They can become heroes. But there's also the inverse of all of that greatness in Leo. Some people of Leo, they are very sentimental. And because they're very sentimental, they're also very irritable. They also may tend to overestimate their own abilities too much. And because they are sentimental and they are irritable, they have this tendency to anger. And of course, they struggle a lot to be able to master that angriness that sometimes exists within them. Every native of Leo, the one thing that the masters share with us is that they always have this elevated mysticism within them. And this elevated mysticism, in many of them, it's at an incipient state. In others, it may be at perhaps a deeper level of development, because it all depends on the type of person. And of much interest is when Samael Aun Weor shares with us that the natives of Leo are always predisposed to suffer arm and hand accidents. In addition to that, in their experience in life, they can suffer a lot morally. So notice how useful is this. If I am a Leo, if you're a Leo, seeing this may spark that internal agreement in which you say, yes, I can see that. That's me. Or if you're with somebody who is intimately associated to you and is a native of Leo, they can say, I understand why that person behaves that way. So when it comes to all of these deep emotions, there is something that is very particular based on our experience with our friends of Leo. With this courage that emanates from them, with this degree of mysticism, with this being predisposed to be protective, they are empathetic. They are people who like to create a safe and comforting home for the people that they love. And moved by these cosmic energy, they are just simply phenomenal partners. They are just great friends to be around. Let me share with you some of the other key information from Leo, and this stuff that we're sharing here is very useful. When it comes to the natives of Leo, knowing that the constellation of Leo has an influence in us sometime between July 21st, 22nd, 23rd, there is always an adjustment depending on where we are with respect to the sun and the constellation itself. Starting around July 23rd, ending in the period close to August 22nd, the element of Leo is the element of fire. The planet of Leo is the sun, and the metal is gold. The stone of Leo is the diamond, and the perfume of Leo is frankincense. The plant is the sunflower, and the flower itself is the amapola, the poppy. The color of Leo is gold, and the key word for the natives of Leo is life. The day of Leo is Sunday, and the ruler of Leo is Archangel Michael. The two regions of the constellation of Leo are Sangham and Seratiel. Now, we share this with you, and we have had some friends coming around and saying, what do I do with all this information? Why is this important? Well, I want you to know why is it that this is so important. When we are observing the metal, the stone, the plant, the flower, this is all giving us an indication on the path of the transmigration of those souls. We know, as we have learned the transmigration of the souls, that as we emerge and we come to see the light of the sun for the first time, we start in the mineral kingdom and we graduate from the mineral kingdom with specific wisdom. We then transition into the plant kingdom. And in the plant kingdom, well, we go through different departments of the plant kingdom until we achieve a degree of mastery that is necessary for this existence. Then we go into the animal kingdom. And from the animal kingdom, then we end up, as we graduate from there, receiving a physical body that is a gift from our Divine Mother. So these metals, these stones, these flowers, these plants give you an indication on the progress of that soul as it moves through the path of transmigration. But then we start seeing things like the ruler of the constellation, like the day of the constellation. Well, on a day like Sunday, you being under the influence of Leo, well, this is the day of the week in which it becomes auspicious for you to be able to initiate projects, to initiate new initiatives. And that is important. When it comes to the ruler, whether it is the ruler of the constellation, which is Archangel Michael, or the genii of the constellation, Sangham and Seratiel, these are archetypes with which you can work with, to ask for guidance, to ask them to work within your human form, to prepare your body, as we learned in the constellation of Cancer, for practical magic, and in this case, for internal development, for it to achieve the mastery of faculties and virtues that are associated with the forces of this particular constellation. And we share this with you because as we study this work that Samael gives us, in the zodiacal course, Samael interjects. He makes an interjection in the lesson to highlight the importance of the heart. And he says, just as the sun is the heart of the solar system, so too is the human heart the sun of our organism. And I think that this is a very simple statement, but also so profound in its knowledge. I mean, to understand that our solar system exists because the sun is there. That our life, the life as we know it, exists because the sun is there. That should give us an indication of how much importance Samael is putting then behind the heart in the human being and the faculties that are associated to the heart. And he does so to such an extent that he says the heart is the sacred temple of the inner master. Our heart, my heart, your heart is the sacred temple of our divine innermost, of our being. And notice how interesting is this, because when Samael initiates the zodiacal course of Leo, he starts it by sharing a story about a Hindu guru that likely you may have not heard of him before. He shares with us the wisdom of Guru Nanak. I mean, he starts the lesson speaking about this guru. Why is it that this guru is of so much interest? Well, it so happens that this man, Guru Nanak, a man who was born back in the 15th century, he was a man born from a very humble family. But what is key about Nanak is that he showed from a very young age, from when he was a child, a very deep contemplative nature. And one of the things that he did was that he was always questioning the religious rituals. He was always wondering, why are things needing to happen this way? Why are people doing this? Or why are people doing that? And he spent his youth seeking spiritual knowledge from both Hindu and Muslim teachers. And one day, by the time that he was close to 30 years old, he was living like a family man. He was a storekeeper. He gets to this place called the Kalibine River. And he gets close to the river and he disappeared. For 3 days, people could not tell where Nanak was. They could not find him. People in general were thinking that Nanak had drowned, that he had died. But after 3 days, he came back. He emerged and he came back transformed by a divine experience. And the words that he was constantly saying after coming back from this divine experience is, there is no Hindu, there is no Muslim. And he was affirming only one thing: the oneness of God and humanity. So Nanak, after going through that experience, he gave up his job. He was no longer a storekeeper. He spent maybe 20 years, maybe a little more than that, and he traveled thousands of miles across Asia. He went to India, he went to Tibet, he went to Sri Lanka, he went to Mecca, and he was always sharing a teaching. He spoke about being against social inequality. He spoke about being against caste discrimination. He spoke about not performing empty rituals. And this is very consistent in his story. As a matter of fact, Guru Nanak is one of that first figure in the sixth, excuse if I'm not saying it correctly, the sixth tradition, which is that religion of the Hindu. And the story that Samael shares about Nanak is very related to the heart. In the story, Samael says that one day, he thinks that it was like a Friday. Prayer time came along, and the master and a servant headed to the mosque. When the Muslim priest started praying, the governor and some other administrator, they bowed before the priest, as is prescribed by the ritual of Mahoma. But Nanak decided to not bow. He decided to stay standing. And he stood there standing still and quiet. And after the prayer time was over, the governor confronted Nanak and, getting angry with him, told him, "How come you did not follow the rituals of the law?" He said, "You are a liar. You are a hypocrite. You should have not come here and stand up like you are some pillar." But Nanak, in his wisdom, he said, "The two of you bent your faces to the ground, and meanwhile, your minds were wandering up in the clouds. Because," and he is looking at one of them, and he's saying, "because you were thinking about bringing horses and now we're thinking about the prayer." And then he says to the other one, "And as for the priest was automatically just practicing ceremonies of prostration and putting his thought into saving a horse that was born a few days ago." He said, "How can I pray with people who are bowing down, but when it comes to prayer, they are repeating prayers like a parrot?" The governor that was there, the administrator that brought Nanak into the mosque, they confessed. They said, "Yes, I was thinking about buying horses throughout all of this religious ceremony. And the other person, he said, yeah, that is true. I was thinking about buying a horse as well. Notice how profound this is. We have heard before from many other good instructors that we get from these practices exactly what we bring into them. If we bring that awareness and that consciousness, we can walk out of these practices with our hands full. But if what we do is just mechanical, everything gets lost within the mechanicity. If we can take a good takeaway, a good teachable point from the story of Nanak, is that true spiritual practice happens in the heart. The true spiritual practice is not mechanical. It is not a distracted set of actions. It is what is truly happening in the heart. And we have seen in this story, how is it that Nanak is standing there doing prayer while the priest, the governor, somebody else, they're doing prostrations, and he's not calling them out to be disrespectful. But he is exposing a fundamental truth that applies to you and to me and to all of us. While our bodies are going through motions, if our mind is elsewhere, that disconnect is very significant. Samael teaches us, you are wherever your consciousness is. So if we're here trying to listen to a lesson on Leo, but we're thinking about something else, then evidently we're not here. We are caught in a daydream. And just in that daydream, like the priest, like the governor in this particular story, we are just repeating actions out of habit. And that leads to some flavor of spirituality that is very superficial, hollow, maybe empty if the mind is absent. True prayer requires of conscious presence. True prayer requires of the engagement of the heart, of that internal alignment of the consciousness and the innermost itself. I mean, it really does not matter how elaborate is the ritual, how complicated the practice may look, how much you have memorized in terms of prayers and mantras and all of that. On the outside, that is certainly impressive, but we will get from it exactly as much consciousness as we bring into it. Samael says, it is necessary for us to learn to pray scientifically. Scientifically, let's refresh that, because science in this case means the understanding of phenomena by virtue of their causes and effects. So we must learn to pray, understanding the series of causes and effects that the prayer generates. And of course, we have to combine prayer with meditation. But Samael also says it is urgent to understand that there are different prayers and that their results are different. And he speaks very specifically about the Lord's Prayer. I mean, there are some prayers that are there for a purpose, for stating petitions, for an exercise of supplication where we, prostrated before the greatness of our being, we're asking for their grace. And Samael tells us there are other prayers that when you meditate on them, they are a recount of cosmic events. And meditation takes you into a profound understanding of many mysteries. But specific to the Lord's Prayer, he says, the Lord's Prayer is a magical formula of immense sacerdotal power. But it is urgent to thoroughly understand it in its total form. We must understand the profound meaning of each word, of each phrase, of each supplication. Because the Lord's Prayer is a prayer of petition. Some prayers are accompanied by petitions, but not all prayers include petitions. And the Lord's Prayer is one of 7 specific petitions. And this is a prayer that we are elevating, when we elevate it from the heart, directly to our innermost, to our being, to our Father. beyond our being, our Father, to our real being, the Father of our Father. That divine Trinity that is the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This Lord's Prayer, Samael tells us, when you combine it with meditation, it produces wonderful objective results. And this is a prayer associated to how much we invest from the heart, with the heart being influenced by the constellation of Leo. Here is the Lord's Prayer. And of course, most of you, if not all of you, know this prayer by heart. But maybe today is the first time that you come to see that there are 7 petitions in this particular prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, our debts, as we forgive those who trespass against us, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. 7 petitions that when we fully invest of ourselves in this exercise, they can generate objective results. That means that when you are asking, thy will be done, when you see the effect that that has here on you, before you make a decision, before you allow an inferior emotion to brew inside of you and say something, before you decide to ask to take a specific action against something, against someone, the first thing that you do is stop and ponder, even for an instant, is this aligned to the will of my being? As if there is a silent voice that whispers deep in that inner ear, and you can perceive that voice saying, don't do that. This is important. Thy will be done. Give us this day our daily bread. Suddenly you're walking throughout your day and you see symbols, key people that you haven't seen in a while, a key message that comes to you, that speaks to you directly to the heart, profoundly. And that bread is the bread of wisdom. Perhaps a nugget of wisdom that you needed to be able to continue successfully throughout that day, to keep you from making a mistake, a warning that you needed to see in a dream. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It invites you to be more compassionate, not only to be of service to others, to be more understanding, to seek to put yourself in the shoes of someone else and walk a mile on their shoes. Lead us not into temptation. Of course, the psychological trainer is consistently tapping you on the shoulder, offering you something. But with this, we start perceiving the value of those many works of that internal psychological trainer. And rather than falling into the temptation and tripping over the same mistakes, we start developing some degree of mastery. Deliver us from evil. Many protections against inferior thoughts, against fears, against conjurations that other people would make about so many acts that are considered, acts of black magic by using inferior thoughts. A protection that comes to you. All of this we find here in this particular prayer. And this is because in this prayer, we find the essence of the intimate Christ. Because it resonates deep with the essence of that Savior inside of us that is seeking to manifest. Because it is in this prayer that we find an acknowledgement, even though we're not verbalizing it, there is an acknowledgement here in which we can see the limitations in which we find ourselves today. Limitations that are philosophical and scientific. An acknowledgement of the consequences of us committing that original sin. And with everything that comes with this beautiful prayer, we see in potentiality our ability to go back and becoming that primordial man. And it is all here in this particular prayer. Combine prayer with meditation. Samael says that when you are praying the Lord's Prayer, if you do it correctly, it'll take you at least an hour. Every phrase, every petition, every word, verbalize it deep within your heart, and in that meditation, remain there in silence, waiting to perceive that voice of the innermost just whispering internally. This is a pathway to ecstasy. This is a doorway into experiencing Samadhi. But how do we do this? How do we go from a condition that we find ourselves today distracted, where it is very difficult for many people to maintain just 30 seconds of undivided attention? How do we go from distracted to conscious? How can we transition, moving into a space of conscious thought, of conscious sentiment, of conscious willpower at the time when we are exercising these prayers? The way to do that, the way to get there, is by seeking our individual and particular Guru Deva, which is a part of our being, which is part of those many parts that make up our being. This is our internal master. This is Hari. Hari, among the Hindu, is the being. Hari is the inner master, and it exists in our heart temple. And we have to make an effort. We must strive to become what perhaps you have heard us say before, which is called a sannyasi of thought. This thing, the sannyasi of thought, these words are so profound. They have so many connotations. If we could put it in a way that is simple, a sannyasi of thought is a sincere practitioner that is serving the guidance of that voice of the silence that exists inside of them. And they are actively working in the dissolution of their ego. That is a sannyasi of thought. And for us to become a sannyasi of thought, for us to break away from these distractions and move into a space of consciousness, go from pistis to Dhyanoya, that state of auto-consciousness, we have to realize that there is no such a thing as living life and doing this internal work. These two things are not separate. And this is by far one of the most common mistakes that we consistently continue to see. It is not live life and take some time of your day to do the work. The key here is that we have to learn to live our life like a rich internal life. And what that means is that life is the work itself. For that to happen, there has to be a willingness. You have to be willing to go through those difficult moments of the day and receive those challenges that you're getting in life with gratitude, with gratefulness. This means that for us to live a rich internal life, we have to break away and move out from the blames and the regrets and the complaints into a state of gratitude for the good and for what some may consider the bad fortune. This means that we have to bring some discipline into our impulses. We have to be able to interrupt the reactions of the ego, denying the mind the opportunity to react. Rather than going into that downward spiral where we're thinking that the person did this to me and why they did it and they are like this, blah, blah. We have to stop that. We have to gain the strength, the internal strength, to persist in the work of an internal transformation. And do that by digging deep into our subconscious and making our subconscious conscious. This is why Samael gives us all these exercises of retrospection, so that we can go back and revisit our day and All those things that we did unconsciously, make them conscious, disconnect them from that mechanical memory that is so fragile that you can change so easy, and make them part of the memory of the esoteric work. We can develop a rich internal life with serenity of patience by closing the door to negative emotions. By bringing about the hermetic seal and not opening the door to the negative emotions, because negative emotions are very contagious. The moment that we start seeing that we are learning to be indifferent to praise, we are being indifferent to criticism, we start experiencing joy, and we enjoy joy, but enjoy it without falling into a state of frenzy. If something happens that feels sad, we can start experiencing sadness, but without falling into despair. And doing this moves us into a state of creating that rich internal life. Being of service to others, venerating nature, the works of the masters, etc., etc. But we have been given this wonderful tool, the Lord's Prayer. And as you have seen, it is a series of petitions that are conducive to inner transformation. So we have to learn to pray this Lord's Prayer. And that way, we can learn to speak with our Father who is in secret. When we combine this prayer with meditation, when our body is totally relaxed, we make an effort to calm our emotional center, our intellectual center, our physical body is relaxed. Suddenly, we start finding the experience of a silent and quiet mind, a mind that is slowly becoming void, empty of distractions. That, by itself, allows us to start perceiving the response of our being that communicates to us through intuits. And the ability of intuition, the faculty of intuition, is a faculty of the heart. This type of work leads us into what Samael refers to as the experience of the illuminating void. And the experience of the void happens when you are in such a deep state of relaxation, when the mind has calmed itself enough to minimize its projections, and suddenly the essence escapes the ego. The consciousness breaks away from the prison of the ego itself and finds itself within this illuminating void. And what it experiences is that which is real. It experiences the truth. Even if it is for a fraction of an instant that you experience the illuminating void, it changes you. And you can do this. We are all given this wisdom because we have in potential the ability to do this. And to do this, we must start by relaxing those three brains of the human machine. That stuff that we learned back in the pre-chamber. We have to relax our motor, sexual, and instinctive center. We have to bring calmness, relaxation into our emotional center. And as you may recall, the story that Samael shares on how is it that the Hindu calmed their elephants. They take an elephant that is wild and they tie it to two elephants that are calm. He says, 2 of them are calm, the third one is going to get calm as well. The same thing happens with the third brain. Because when the first one, the motor, sexual, instinctive, is relaxed, and the second one, the emotional brain, is calm, as a consequence, the intellectual center follows suit. And it starts minimizing its projections. And when we have a physical vehicle that is relaxed, when we have an emotional center that is calm, our intellect, that active mind that is all ego, starts becoming silent and receptive. How can you do that? In this lesson, Samael shares with us an exercise that is so beautiful in its nature. He says, you start by setting yourself in dorsal decubitus. What does that mean? That means on your back. You're resting comfortably on your back, and you spread your legs and you spread your arms side to side, and you make the shape of a 5-pointed star. This posture is very meaningful. Before the shape of the five-pointed star, the masters tell us the columns of demons and tenebrous ones, they run away. Now, some people do find this posture difficult for meditation. That is true. If that's the case, then you can assume the corpse's posture, the dead man's posture. That one is a lot more simple. You're laying flat on your back, but your heels are together. You allow your feet to relax so they naturally open side to side. And you allow your arms to remain relaxed alongside your body. That's it. Thing is that you're resting comfortably on your back. And for this exercise, as with every exercise of meditation, you must be ready to achieve a balance between being awake and being asleep. Half awake, half asleep. Samael says 50% awake, 50% asleep. This is what we're looking when we are meditating. We have to be in a state where we are predisposed for the body to sleep. We need that. Quick sidebar. Because the ethereal body is making changes. And the changes that it's making them at the level of your neural networks. It is making new connections. It is rearranging things. So when your body is half awake, half asleep, that ethereal body can do that easily. The exercise becomes very fruitful. So once you are in this posture, what do? We are going to focus in controlling the perception of our pulse. It is necessary for you to fully relax the muscles of your body. And once you do that, focus your attention on the tip of your nose until you start feeling the heart pulse right there at the tip of your nose. And it'll take just a few seconds to perceive that. Once you start feeling those pulsations of the heart in the tip of your nose, you will consciously move those pulsations, you will project them from the tip of your nose to your right hand. And after a second or two, suddenly you will feel how that sensation of the pulsation in your nose fades away and it starts growing on your right hand. And so you start feeling the pulsations of your heart on your right hand. And once you perceive them there, and remember, we perceive this without identifying with it, without fascinating with it, because if we do, we fall asleep. We fall deeper into the sleep of consciousness. Once you feel it in that hand, you then project that pulse from your right hand to your right foot. And you will feel that it fades away in the right hand and it grows. And you start feeling that distal pulse in your toes, in your foot. As you're feeling that, you then move it to your left foot. You then move it to your left hand. You then move it to your left ear. You see how things are? I forgot to tell you, move it from the nose to the right ear. But that's how the instructions of Samael. You project your pulse from your nose to the right ear, to your right hand, to your right foot, and then to your left foot, to your left hand, to your left ear. And you will see how is it that it is so clearly perceived how those pulsations take place separately in each one of these organs, when right there where you have that focused attention. This control over the physical body is very important because control over the physical body begins with the control over your pulse. As soon as you start being able to project it and feel it and move it at will, you start gaining that better control over that physical vehicle. And the control over those palpitations of the heart, teaching from Samael, it can never come from the heart muscles themselves. It depends exclusively on the control of the pulse. And that sensation of the pulse is what the masters refer to as the second heartbeat. They refer to that as the great heart. Samael tells us, ecstasy, satori, samadhi, always succeeds the very slow pulses. Samael even tells us, listen and meditate so that you can hear that voice of the silence. The more you can project that pulse, not only you can project it and perceive it, you can slow it down. And as you're slowing it, the more you slow it, the deeper you go into relaxation. And the more relaxed you are, the more able you are to hear that voice of the silence. So now that we're speaking about the constellation of Leo, Leo is the throne of the sun. The sun is the heart of the zodiac. Leo rules the human heart, and the sun of the organism is the heart itself. It is here in the heart that we see forces that descend from the heavens mixing with forces that rise from below. And Samael says when those forces come together, those forces come from below, can be set free. Here in our heart, the forces of the archetypes of Leo and all of the angels and archangels of Leo, all of those forces are present here in our heart. And with the help of our being, with the help of our innermost, all of these divine masters, angels, archangels, etc., they can help us grow the superior qualities of Leo. We can receive these forces that descend from the heavens. And working with these divine beings, they can help us grow internally in such a way that we can live in harmony. We can live in authority over the mind and authority over inferior influences here in this dense realm of the substance. We can ask of these great masters to help us awaken the faculties of the heart. Because awakening the faculties of the heart, that leads to conscious astral unfoldment. It leads to intuition, to imagination, to inspiration. And Samael says the path of initiation requires imagination, inspiration, and intuition. But we must learn to speak to our Father. As we go through life, not only the ordeals that we experience here, but the tests that we are given in the astral plane lead us to make progress and seeing life as a path to initiation. Well, successfully passing these ordeals leads to successful completion of initiations. And all of these initiations, we receive them in the temples of the astral plane. It would be phenomenal if we were there consciously to bring back those memories into the physical form. Because it happens that some people receive these great celebrations, but they don't remember. Nevertheless, the school is life itself. So what is the recommendation during the time of Leo? Act on the heart through meditation. And internal meditation requires three things: perfect concentration, perfect meditation, and perfect enlightenment. And it starts with concentration because concentration is the technique. We must concentrate the mind on the inner master. We must meditate on the greatness, on the majesty of our being. We must learn to speak to our inner master and speak to our divine being until we can hear the voice of the innermost and have a conversation with the innermost about all of these ineffable things. Samael says very clearly in the Zodiacal Course, this is Samadhi. If you're wondering what the experience of Samadhi is, happiness, floating, Samael makes it very tangible to all of us. Speak to your inner master until you can hear the voice of your inner master and you can speak, converse with your inner master about all of these ineffable things. That is Samadhi. And concentration is the way to get there. So we must concentrate the mind on the inner master. We must meditate on the greatness of the being. We must speak to the master. Relevant to the voice of the silent. Blavatsky, in her works of the voice, she has a book that is titled The Voice of Silence. She says, before the soul can hear, the image, she refers to the physical man, has to become as deaf to roarings as to whispers, to cries of bellowing elephants as to the silvery buzzing of the golden firefly. Before the soul can comprehend and may remember, she must unto the silent speaker be united, just as the form to which the clay is modeled is first united with the potter's mind. For then the soul will hear and remember, and then to the inner ear will speak the voice of the silence. So we tell you this. Veiled here within the words of Madame Blavatsky, she has given us in this tiny book, The Voice of the Silence, a means to experience Samadhi, a way to experience the bliss of paradise. And so when you sit down to meditate, remember that the inner master is the divine witness. The inner master is the being. That inner master that exists in your heart, submerge yourself in profound meditation. And if you have learned that mantras are words of power, then say this. Not this. Not this. Not this. I am El. I am El. I am El. Continue repeating that. Okay, enough about this. Let's go into our practical section of the lesson. With that, I'll leave it with Rachel.
Thank you. All right, so in Master Samael's zodiac course, he says that the zodiac of Leo rules the heart in the spinal column. Leo is the heart of the zodiac, and during this time, the forces of Leo are very favorable in supporting heart activities of prayer, devotion, meditation, and submerging into those profound states of Samadhi. He points out that meditation on the name Hari, as Rick was talking about, the being, permits us to experience what is real and authentic. And he also recommends praying the Pater Noster and concentrating on each word, each phrase, each line, and wisely combining it with meditation for an hour or more. Specific to the heart, Master Samael says that the forces from above mix with those forces from below to become liberated in the heart. Those forces from above that are in the shape of a triangle descend, and the forces that rise from the earth ascend, and then they meet and intermingle, and they form the seal of Solomon. So during the sign of Leo, we can utilize our objective imagination, our clairvoyance, to see those forces at the heart and vocalize the vowel O daily to awaken the heart chakra. The faculties of the heart are inspiration, intuition, presentiment, astral travel, and the jinn sciences. We can vocalize the vowel O daily for 1 hour. If you don't have an hour, 10 minutes or even 20 minutes is better than no vocalization at all. Okay, so go into like a comfortable position. I'm going to sit. I'm going to sit upright. Or you can assume that star posture or the dead man's posture if you prefer to lay down. And we're going to take a deep breath in. 1. I like to tense up. 2. I like to release all that tension. Okay, let's do a little hamsa. Let's move our attention and concentrate on the heart, praying to our innermost, feeling it, really feeling it in your heart. Say, Father of mine, my true being, my eternal God, please transport yourself to the heart temple of the constellation of Leo. And once there, make then salutations to the guardians of that temple, crossing our arms right over the left. We bow to the right, Jakin, to the left, Boaz. Take the 7 sacred steps inside the temple and prostrate before the ruler, Mikael, and the 2 elders, Sagam and Seratiel. Mikael, Sagam, and Seratiel. Mikael, Sagam, and Seratiel. Mikael, Sagam, and Seratiel. We invoke you in the name of the Christ, by the power of Christ, by the love of Christ. Mantra Antya Dauna Sastasa. Antya Dauna Sastasa. Mikael, Sagam, and Seratiel, we ask you to give us a treatment to our heart, heal our hearts, and awaken all the divine faculties of the heart. Give us the strength of Leo. Increase our intuition. Give us inner tranquility. And restore and unlock the abilities of astral and jinn faculties. We're going to do the mantra. Oh, we'll start out loud and we'll get quieter, and so you can continue it mentally. Oh. 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 And continue vocalizing the mantra mentally, using your clairvoyance, your objective imagination to see those energies at the heart. The seal of Solomon, they intermingle. Mikhail, Sagham, Saratil, thank you for the help that you've given us. May this work result in virtue and triumph. May it be according to the great law and the universal charity. Do the sign of the cross. We offer this work in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the microcosmic star, by the holy, most powerful Tetragrammaton, and close it with the rune sig.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. And may all beings be happy. See you next time.